Any leadership that does not fight for your collective and individual ability to compete, which means equitable and equal representation of jobs, economics, education, housing, law, medical treatment, entertainment, religion, sex, defense, and protection, as stated by your cries, is a leadership that will lead you or keep you in bondage.
Racism is still alive in American. I'm tired of more.
Death is better than bondage.
Peace, blessings, and black love. This is OOOOOWWWTT coming to you black at it again. And this video clip, family, this is a video, so I do want you guys to look at it. So in your spare time, whatever you're doing, exercising, running, just carve out some time so you can at least look at the image. I want to say the image comes in around somewhere around that 2 minutes, 50 seconds or something like that, somewhere in that time frame for those that want to fast forward it. Basically, it's Bruce Lee explaining how acting on stage, theatrical life, how the difference between the warrior and the scholar is sometimes looked at and or portrayed. So when I talk to you guys, I'm always trying to iterate to you guys behavioral patterns and talking points. The reason why I'm doing that is because I cannot tell you specifically who's going to cross that line and who is not going to cross that line, because that really doesn't really come to a finite answer until that pressure pops. However, there are cues, one you could look out for, behavioral patterns or talking points you should be able to look out for to sort of kind of give you a gauge of who is and who isn't. And you do that by asking questions. You don't do that simply by just not knowing. You observe, you participate, you ask questions. And once you do that over and over and over and over and over, you do get a better understanding. You are better able to judge the book. Now, with that being said, I'm speaking of Warrior. I'm speaking of why I don't like Christians, why I don't like scholars, why I don't like your Hoteppers, all those things. In a nutshell, it's because they're not going to cross the line, or they're less likely to cross the line as far as time. Right now, it's time to come off that porch. And those personality types are not coming off the porch. They're not coming off the porch because, in essence, they don't see a path of victory. The religious people group, they don't come off that porch because they've already committed their faith to some supernatural being. So in their mind, it's the supernatural being that's supposed to do all the heavy lifting. The scholars, they're not coming off that porch because in their mind, they haven't read enough information that says if they come off that porch, it's going to give them a victory. Your Hoteppers or your Egyptologists, they're not coming off that porch for the most part because Queen Mother has not given them the command to come off that porch. The ones that are most likely to come off that porch is your warrior class. But the warrior class, unfortunately, they're not often academically inclined to secure a victory. So yes, they're always willing to fight. but because they're not academically inclined, they don't often garnish a victory. So you got some wins under their belt, but they're never really knocking it out of the park. Now, even every time you make a victory, it's just something to talk about. It's one to grow on. It's food for thought. Yeah, you remember when he did that? Yeah, you can see where that individual did wrong. You can see what that individual could have done to do right. And for the most part, because we do things by trial and error, you can look at our mistakes and hopefully do better. Unfortunately, with the Warrior class, we don't process information like that. We're impatient, we're not dedicated, we're not devoted, we just don't like shit. And when we don't like shit, the only thing we know for certain is this shit gotta stop. But because we're not patient, we're often not listening to the scholar. We're often not listening to, those that have more experience so we can make the best choice. Then we're gonna get caught up, or then we're gonna die. But I'm explaining, I want you guys not to get hung up on likes, because that's an emotional reference. I could care less emotionally. They're not bothering me. I put them in a category of not gonna come off that porch because they don't see a victory. They don't see a path to success. What I'm trying to do is get you to understand why there is no path to success. 9,000 years, Noble Drew Ali. 9,000 years, A. Philip Randolph. 9,000 years, Medgar Evers. 9,000 years, Nat Turner. 9,000 years, Patrice Lumumba. Patrice with the P, Lumumba. We've had so many examples to where we should have culminated a strategy that says this is going to be the for sure victory. Even if we move into the Secret Service sector where men and women are moving in private and quiet, we've had enough examples to where we should become victorious. The reason why we're not victorious is not because of the warrior class. The reason why we are not victorious is because of your scholars, your Christians, and your Hotepers. Because they're the ones that have the intellect, but they're not sharing it in a warrior-esque way. They're telling people don't move. And when you hear that information, you don't move because you don't have a victorious way. So you let the warrior go out there and fight your Huey P. Newton, but he becomes sacrificial. You let your warrior go out there and fight A-Trap Brown, but he becomes sacrificial. You let your warrior S go out there and fight Fannie Lou Hamer, but she becomes sacrificial. And you don't teach the next generation how to do what they did in a victorious way. You don't even teach them how to be political. You don't even teach them how to be economical. That is the problem with the scholars, the Hoteps, and the Christians. They have no desire to fight. When I'm trying to reference that with this Bruce Lee and how he's going to convey how they, in the theatrical world, depict your warrior class and your scholars, what I'm showing you, or what I'm trying to iterate to you, how the rest of the world sees Black America. The rest of the world sees Black Americans as weak, and we are weak. Let's not mince words. We are weak because of the men. I'm a male, and I know the majority of 90% of our issues as a people stem from the women. They make you weak. I know as a male, the best thing to do for our sons and daughters is to get them away from these women as soon as we can. And that's usually when they're able to walk. I know that as a male. As a middle-aged male, I've learned the women are the problem. The longer your children stay around your women, the worse off they are. And since I know that as a male, my job is to reach out and touch somebody's hand. My job is to reach out and touch these younger males and get them to realize the problem that you're facing actually stems from your mom. Your mom orchestrated that shit, and your coward-ass father, he allowed it. Why? Because his mom made him weak. And instead of him doing what he got to do to detox from the poison his mother put in him, instead of him doing whatever he got to do to go through rehab, he pretty much just succumbed to his own pain, his devices, his triggers, his daddy issues, his mama issues, and now he's for the most part a lost cause. Since I'm not broken like that, I want to reach out to the younger males and the younger females as well, so that they can see their mama really was orchestrating the whole thing. You cannot go up against white supremacy racism without first fighting white people. You can't fight white people without first having courage. You do not have courage to fight anybody other than black folks. So when I speak the speak that I speak, I'm giving you a lineage, a line. I'm trying to connect the dots. When you listen to this Bruce Lee, please put it in its context and its perspective. The world sees us this way, as a group of people. Roll the tape.
My last name is Lee, Bruce Lee. I was born in San Francisco in 1940. I'm 24 right now.
And you worked in motion pictures in Hong Kong?
Yes, since I was around 6 years old.
And when did you leave Hong Kong?
1959, when I was 18.
I see. Now look over to me, Bruce, as we talk. I understand you just had a baby boy?
Yeah.
And you've lost a little sleep over it, have you?
3 nights.
And tell the crew what time they shoot the pictures in Hong Kong.
Well, it's mostly in the morning because it's kind of noisy in Hong Kong, you know, around 3 million people there. And so every time when you have picture, it's mostly, say, around 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning.
I see. They'd love that there. And you went to college in the United States?
Yes.
And what did you study?
Philosophy.
I see. Now, you told me earlier today that karate and jiu-jitsu are not the most powerful of the best forms of Oriental fighting. What is the most powerful of the best form?
Well, it's bad to say the best, but in my opinion, I think Kung Fu is pretty good.
Would you tell us a little bit about Kung Fu?
Well, Kung Fu is originated in China. It is the ancestor of karate and jiu-jitsu. It's more of a complete system, and it's more fluid. By that I mean it's more flowing. There is continuity in movement instead of one movement, two movement, and then stop.
Would you look right into the camera lens and explain the principle of the glass of water as it applies to Kung Fu?
Well, Kung Fu, the best example would be a glass of water. Why? Because water is the softest substance in the world, but yet it can penetrate the hardest rock or anything, granite, you name it. Water also is insubstantial. By that I mean you cannot grasp hold of it. You cannot punch it and hurt it. So every Kung Fu man is trying to do that, to be soft like water and flexible and adapt itself to the opponent.
I see. What's the difference between a Kung Fu punch and a karate punch?
Well, a karate punch is like an iron bar, whack. A Kung Fu punch is like an iron chain with an iron ball attached to the end, and it go whang, and it hurt inside.
First, show me the movements in the classical Chinese theater.
Classical Chinese
Well,
theater.
you know what we talked about in the office, how they walk and how they start to move.
Well, in Chinese opera, they have the warrior and then the scholar. The way the warrior walk will be something like this. Walking this way, straight, come out, bend, straight, and then walk out again. The way the warrior walk will be something like this. Walking this way, straight, come out, bend, straight, and then walk out again. The way the warrior walk will be something like this. Walking this way, straight, come out, bend, straight, and then walk out again. An ordinary scholar would be just like a female, a weakling, 90 pounds in child hours. An ordinary scholar would be just like a female, a weakling, 90 pounds in child hours. An ordinary scholar would be just like a female, a weakling, 90 pounds in child hours. An ordinary scholar would be just like a female. An ordinary scholar would be just like a female. You'll be just walking, you know, like a girl, real, shoulder up and everything.
So by the way they walk, you can immediately tell who they are.
Right, what character they...
Now keep in mind, I'm fully aware he said theater, which is a stage play, which is make-believe, which is fake. But you have to understand when we say art imitates life and life imitates art, what that means in essence is they are still taking their cues from real life events. And what you, the listening audience, must understand is if you want the rest of the world to see us as we are, powerful, you're going to have to change the way you move, the way you conduct yourself, the way you speak. Even when you hear the classic quote, when you hear two people arguing, you see fools. Nobody can make the difference between who's the fool in an argument. Perception. What's the other one in the world of art? When it's I forgot the word, but basically it describes how something looks off in the distance. I'll come back to that word later. But basically, all I'm really getting at is even though that this is not real, we model our lives after the things we desire. Wrestlers, boxers, joggers, sports athletes, gangsters, we model our behavioral patterns after the things we see. Perspective. That's the word in drawing, perspective. It is time that you black males, you get your head out of your backsides and you get into this fight. Stop only using your fists. Be willing to use your brain. Your brain is actually more powerful than your fists. The primary reason why you use your fist is because you're impatient and you don't think that you can rely on any of your other tools. I am, as a middle-aged male, I am trying to explain to you, you have greater and stronger and more stamina-induced tools than your fist. It is time that you use the greatest tool of all, which is your brain. And if you have reading issues, say it so we can help. If you have comprehension issues, say it so we can help. All that other talk, that tough talk, that other nigger babble, we're done with that. Warrior class, zoo, rise up. Warrior class, zoo, show up. Warrior class, zoo, speak up. Warrior class, zoo, smoke 'em out. Peace, blessings, and black love.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
In this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Fair Use Act disclaimer. This site is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research.